The morning at Andrews Air Base began like countless others. Jets roared awake, soldiers ran drills, and mechanics bent over toolkits. Nothing hinted that today would be different then. Without fanfare, a black motorcade slipped past the security gates. Murmurs spread immediately. Is it him? Guards stiffened, their eyes tracking the tinted windows. When the doors opened, President Donald Trump stepped out. Melania beside him. The base fell silent, not just from protocol, but from surprise. No briefing had been given, no speech was on the schedule. The president had simply arrived unannounced. He strolled across the tarmac with Melania, shaking hands, offering nods, acknowledging faces. Some soldiers snapped 2 sharp salutes. Others stared, wondering why today, why here. Sergeant Williams, 15 years in service, whispered, "Leaders always come with speeches. This feels different." Trump paused to greet a young cadet, Jessica Green, only 20. She fumbled with her cap as he smiled and said warmly, "You're doing great work." Jessica froze. Melania stepped forward, resting a gentle hand on her shoulder. "How long have you been serving?" she asked softly. "Almost a year, ma'am," Jessica replied with pride. That small exchange rippled through the ranks like a spark. Soldiers began to sense this wasn't a staged visit. Something else was happening. Inside the hangar, men and women gathered quickly, no orders, just curiosity. Trump removed his coat and set it casually over a chair. Then looked around at the aircraft, the tools, the people. "I'm not here to give a speech," he said, catching them off guard. "I'm here to listen." The hangar, usually filled with machinery, grew still. Soldiers exchanged glances. Leaders rarely came to listen. Melania nodded with a smile. "We wanted to hear your real stories, not reports, not headlines." "You." The first to speak was Sergeant Williams. His voice carried the weight of years. "Sir, life here isn't easy. We're proud to serve, but our families pay the price. I've missed birthdays, anniversaries, my daughter's first steps. I only saw them in videos." His voice cracked. Trump listened silently, nodding. "That's real sacrifice," he said quietly, almost to himself. Melania's expression softened. She understood separation too well. William's honesty opened the floodgates. One by one, soldiers stepped forward. Corporal Rivera, a young mother, admitted, "Some nights I cry. My little boy thinks I don't want to come home. He doesn't understand." Melania's eyes glistened. She took Rivera's hand. "One day he will, and he'll know his mother was a hero." The room shifted. This wasn't politics. It was recognition. Jessica Green, still shaken from earlier, found her voice. "Sometimes I wonder if people back home even understand us. They think it's just planes and uniforms. But it's carrying responsibility in an age when most of my friends are still figuring out life." Trump met her gaze. "Responsibility isn't easy. But you're carrying more than your own dream. You're carrying the hope of your generation." Melania added gently, "And service isn't only about what you give, it's about who you become." Jessica smiled, no longer invisible. Then the base commander wheeled in a surprise guest, Captain Lillian Hayes, 70 years old, retired Navy, still sharp-eyed, though her frame was frail. The room straightened instantly. Trump shook her hand with respect. "Captain Hayes, it's an honor." She chuckled. "I'm just an old sailor who still loves this country." The soldiers leaned in. She spoke of nights at sea, of loneliness, of the pride stitched into every uniform. "I may not march anymore," she said, her voice quivering, "but I carry the memories of every storm, every loss, every triumph. Remember, your strength isn't only in your arms, but in your hearts." Melania placed a tender hand over hers. Trump nodded. "That's wisdom no textbook can teach." The soldiers applauded softly, genuinely. Then Captain Hayes' eyes swept the room. "Promise me this. Never forget why you serve. Not for medals. Not for recognition. For the people who sleep safely at night because of you." Her words landed like an anchor in every heart in the back of the hangar. Private Daniel Lee, just 18 and silent until now, felt something stir. Trump noticed a young soldier standing quietly at the back. Private Daniel Lee, just 18, hadn't spoken all day. The president walked toward him. "What about you, son? Anything you'd like to share?" Daniel shifted uncomfortably. "I don't know if my story matters." Melania leaned in with a gentle smile. Every story matters. Taking a shaky breath, Daniel spoke. My dad never came back from deployment. I joined to carry on what he started. The hangar fell silent. Heads bowed instinctively in respect. Trump placed a firm hand on Daniel's shoulder. Your father would be proud, and I want you to know you don't carry that legacy alone. Daniel's eyes brimmed with tears. For him, this wasn't politics. It was being seen, truly seen, in his grief and his purpose. Instead of ending the visit, Trump surprised everyone. Let's have lunch together. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Presidents didn't casually sit down in mess halls. But minutes later, he and Melania were sliding trays along the line, sitting shoulder to shoulder with the troops. The atmosphere shifted. Soldiers chuckled as Trump sampled the simple meal. Not bad, he joked, taking another bite. Melania asked about families, hobbies, daily routines. Slowly, the stiffness of rank and title faded. It wasn't soldiers and commander-in-chief anymore, it was people sharing a meal. Conversations deepened. Trump asked Sergeant Williams about his daughter's milestones. Melania leaned closer to hear Corporal Rivera describe her young son. Daniel, encouraged, spoke about his father, the bravery, the humor, the way he used to sneak candy into the barracks. The realization spread. The President and First Lady weren't here to be admired. They were here to connect. Trump listened more than he spoke, a rare quality for a man so used to the spotlight. Melania absorbed each story with quiet compassion. Walls that had stood for years began to fall. The mess hall filled with laughter. For once, their voices weren't drowned out by orders or routine. When the meal ended, Trump rose and reached into his coat pocket. He unfolded a letter. Before coming here, I received a note from a military widow, he began. His tone grew solemn. She didn't ask for money or recognition. She asked for one thing. Please, never let soldiers feel forgotten. The room stilled. That's why we came, Trump continued. Not for cameras. Not for ceremonies. To remind you your sacrifices matter every single day. Melania's voice softened but carried clearly. And to remind you that behind every uniform is a heart that deserves to be seen. It was not politics. It was a promise. From the back, a soldier lifted a guitar. Corporal Jenkins, known quietly for his music, hesitated, then began to strum. A soft melody filled the air, his own song for fallen friends. His voice trembled as he sang of sacrifice, of laughter lost, of bonds unbroken. Tears welled in many eyes. Even in Trump's and Melania's, when the final note faded, Trump rose to clap slowly. The soldiers joined in, the sound echoing like a salute. That, Trump said firmly, is the voice of service, not just in battle, but in the love you carry for one another. For a moment, everyone felt the invisible thread binding past, present, and future woven through sacrifice, memory, and song. Then Captain Hayes. The retired veteran lifted her hand for silence. From her lap, she pulled a worn envelope. Her fingers trembled as she extended it toward Trump. This is a letter I wrote to myself the day I retired, she said softly. I never thought I'd give it to anyone, but today feels right. Trump accepted it as if it were glass. What's inside? He asked gently. Hayes smiled faintly. A reminder that even when the uniform comes off, the duty to care for one another never ends. Melania placed her hand gently over Trump's, sealing the moment. The soldiers watched, knowing they weren't witnessing politics or ceremony, but something quieter, deeper, the unspoken bond between generations of service. Later, out by the runway, as jets thundered overhead, Trump turned to the assembled men and women. His voice carried not as a politician's, but as a man humbled. When I walked in today, I expected to see strengthened. I did. But I also saw something greater. Your humanity, your sacrifices, your dreams, your families. That is the real strength of this nation. He paused, letting the words sink in. And I promise we will do everything we can to honor that, not just today, but always. The soldiers didn't erupt in cheers. Instead, they stood tall and silent, their salutes glistening with unshed tears. The respect wasn't in noise. It was in the silence of a promise made and heard. Melania stepped forward, her tone calm yet unwavering. I see mothers here, fathers, sons and daughters. You carry heavy burdens, but also great love. Service is not only about sacrifice, it is about inspiring others through your example. You inspire me. You inspire this nation." Her words were not polished lines. They were lived truths. For Cadet Jessica Green, they became fuel. Maybe I really can do this. For Rivera, comfort. For Daniel, healing. And for Captain Hayes, closure. Sometimes the right words arrive at the right time. Man, this was one of those moments. As the couple prepared to depart, something remarkable happened. One soldier began to clap. Another joined. Then, another. The sound rose like a wave until the entire hangar thundered with applause. Louder than any engine outside. It wasn't applause for power. It was gratitude for being seen, heard, and valued. Trump's eyes glistened. Melania slipped her arm through his, both visibly moved. Captain Hayes leaned to the soldier beside her and whispered, "This isn't about politics anymore. It's about people." The applause swelled, carrying that truth. Soldiers stood taller not for a man, but for the reminder of why they served. As the motorcade readied to leave, Trump stopped abruptly. He turned back, walking to Private Daniel, the quiet young soldier who had spoken about his father. Reaching into his pocket, he pulled out a small challenge coin engraved with a presidential seal. "This is for your father," Trump said, his voice steady but low, "and for you to remind you that his legacy lives on in you." Daniel clutched the coin with trembling hands, speechless. Melania bent down, kissed his cheek, and whispered, "Be proud." Around them, soldiers watched in silence, their hearts swelling. Sometimes the smallest gesture carries the weight of a lifetime. For Daniel, that moment became the turning point of his journey. As the motorcade pulled away, Trump and Melania sat quietly in the back seat. "They don't need speeches," Melania said softly. "They just need to be seen." Trump nodded, staring out the window at the fading base. That's the lesson today. Sometimes the greatest thing a leader can do is listen. The silence between them wasn't empty. It was filled with the voices, the stories, the hearts they had encountered. They had come to show appreciation, but left carrying something heavier, the responsibility to ensure those sacrifices were never forgotten. Soldiers lingered in small groups, replaying the day. "I've never felt so valued," Rivera admitted. Jessica Green opened her journal and wrote, "This is why I serve to be part of something bigger than myself." Daniel tucked the coin deep into his pocket, silently vowing never to forget. Captain Hayes smiled quietly, her heart lighter than it had been in years. The story of the visit spread, not through headlines, but from soldier to soldier, family to family. Its moral was simple, but profound. Leadership is not only about commanding, it is about listening, about acknowledging, about respecting the humanity behind every uniform, and for those who stood on the base that day. One truth would remain when Trump and Melania walked through those gates. They left behind more than words. They left behind a promise.